Hey, what's up? Felt like sharing some thoughts on my impressions of Diablo 4 Season 4 because when I did first boot it up, start playing it, and gave the new Helltide a try, I was impressed. I liked it. So I'm going to save my two big main complaints that are still my main complaints about the game for the end, and I'll first say the good things that I like about Season 4. Again, Helltide is pretty cool. It's very fast. The old Helltide was fine as a game mechanic in the game, but it wasn't really any different than any other little event and little quest that you do in the game. It was a little bit more, but you could barely tell the difference. Helltide now is. I hope they don't change it. It was constant, like just enemies just spawning everywhere. Everywhere, dude. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And I was just constantly slaying. I was like, yeah, this is what I remember Diablo being. It's kind of just barely getting any movement before having to kill a bunch of stuff. So that's pretty fun. Very fast paced. I liked it. I like what they've done. I like what they've done with it so far. So that's cool. I I noticed I noticed the gold radius, like how the radius in which you loot it was like slightly larger. I hope they make it even bigger. I still want companion pets to loot gold and stuff. But I noticed that was something different, and I asked a couple people. I was like, "Did you notice did they increase the gold loot?" And they said if they did, barely. And I was like, "Okay," because they did update a few smaller quality of life things in the game that they didn't really. Actually, I think they did put all that. There was a lot of notes. I read them before the patch even came out. But I didn't memorize them or anything. But I was actually a little excited for it because I read the notes, and I was like, wow, you could tell they did a lot. Like, so pretty cool, pretty cool. Let's see, tempering is the new stat. The way you deal with stats, like upgrading your gear. I like it. It's similar. It's almost as good as the aspects. A little bit less powerful, but pretty cool. And I had forgot, so they have less stats on the gear now. Still a lot of stats on the gear, but less, so it's a little bit easier to focus and tell what's going to be an upgrade instead of a side grade. I had remembered, like, it was one of my complaints of Marvel Heroes was there was just too many stats on gear, man, and they thought it was special and cool because they were like, look at all these things you get to pick from, but it was like it was literally like 15 to 20 different stats on a piece of gear, and you had to figure that out with every piece of gear that you had. So it was too much. It was too much. Diablo 4 wasn't as bad as that, but it was kind of bad. Now what they have right now, if they don't break it again, seems pretty cool. Like I like what they've done with the stats, the stat change that they did. But it does feel a bit more meaningful and impactful in a way. And then, so the tempering, as far as I could tell, replaces upgrading gear. So before this season, you used to upgrade your gear, your armor, your weapons. You go to the blacksmith and craft upgrades, improving their stats and stuff. That's gone now. Instead, they have a similar thing. It's an upgrade, like it's a different implementation of a similar feature, right? Like it's almost the same, but it's better. The stats that you're adding come in categories, and you can pick what you want to add. And you still have a randomization to it on the number that it'll have. Like if you get is it going to be crit? The categories have a few different things inside of them, and it can have different levels of what it's going to add to your gear and stuff. So there's a little bit of that randomization and which stat you're going to put on there and stuff. Okay. Those are a few of my notes. Basically, that's it. I'm like there's not a lot. I mean, that's what's interesting. It is a big update, but for me, it's gonna come down to my main complaint still, which right now I would say even the copy paste of the map design isn't as on the the bottom of my list now as far as like being annoying and stuff, because it is really annoying and it is noticeable, and it's like, oh, this is horrible. If there's 50 different caves in the game, they're all literally exactly the same layout with a different like aesthetic, but they're the same thing. But you know, whatever, man. But anyways, yeah, it's weird because I mean I have a bunch of notes, but it's all really related to the same thing. You know, like I thought tempering was cool, but I didn't really feel the need to get super deep into that. Like it's cool, I like it. I even asked, like I tweeted at him, I was like, "Is this a permanent feature? Because this is really cool." And then I got a couple replies saying, "Yeah." So I was like, "If this is permanent, what exactly is the season then? Like, what did they add in it?" Because to me, it seems like tempering's the thing, but I think it must be something more endgame or whatever. But yeah, no, it felt good. So I like what they've done so far. I think it's very cool. It felt good. The loot was good. I was actually struggling to find upgrades in the lower levels. Like around level 14 was when it started, so I wasn't struggling too hard to get upgrades until like level 14, 15. And then I had, by that level, I had pretty good gear. So I wasn't upgrading like every piece, you know. And I like that. It reminded me of the freaking beta. Like, before this game came out, the loot was really good. I was low level with a couple uniques and stuff, and I was like rocking, man. And I was like, wow, this is epic. And then they nerfed the loot at launch, of course. It reminded me of freaking Diablo 3 again. So we're back to beta loot, I guess, now, as you can actually get fun loot as you're leveling up, right? Like, it's not all just endgame. There's fun loot while you level, so that's cool. That's cool. That was one of my complaints. I was like, this is just weird. It wasn't like you got bad loot before. It just wasn't fun, you know. It was just kind of very basic. All the fun loot was at the end. Higher levels and stuff, like 60 plus. Which is fine, you know. It doesn't take forever to get there, but it just made low level leveling feel kind of boring, you know, a little bit. Anyways, I know I had another point that I wanted to stack on that, but I'll go on about it too much, man. So the main issue that I still have right now that keeps me bored in the game, because like I was really into it, man. I played it for like 8 hours, I think. Yesterday it came out. The patch came out yesterday. Yeah, I played it most of the day. I was like, all right. My character that I made for the season is level 35 right now. I played it for like about half an hour earlier today. I played most of it yesterday. And today I was like, I don't know if I want to play. And then I played a little bit, and I was like, yeah, you know what? No. And so I'll tell you, the main reason, the main thing that keeps me bored in Diablo 4 is just the lack of variety in skill sets. There's a few different builds per character, basically. You know, there's a little more, but it's just, I think of Diablo 3 because even Diablo 2, there's just way more skills to pick from. There's way more different ways to play your character. Like in 4, there's 3 or 4 different ways to play your character. It's very small. It's a really small amount of like builds to really pick from. Now there's things you can play with. But like, I don't know, it's just a whole lot less. And if I put them side by side, I thought about it. I was like, I don't want to do that. I gotta, maybe I'll save it for another video. I wanted to do it, but I just mostly just wanted to talk about the season. I liked it. But it's crazy to see the huge patch that they did for this is really good. But this kind of should have been how it launched. And there's so much more that this game is missing that should have been there at launch. Like, for real. When you were comparing this game, I'm comparing this game to previous games in the series. Why would I not expect things that were in previous games to be here? Diablo 3 companion pets makes no sense why those are gone. You know, there's all kinds of things where, like, even the wings, you know, like we got backpacks in this one, like what that you can't even see, and they charge money for it. There, on top of that, their store is really horrible. See, that's not even getting into that, right? Like, I could get into the store and how disgusting and that is, but you know, I don't even need to. It's the gameplay itself and whatever. So you know, it sucks, and I don't want to get into another rant about like all the things that I don't like, and you know, things that whatever. it's kind of sad to me because like I've liked the seasons as far as the mechanics go. I really liked the vampire one. I thought the vampire abilities were super cool. I liked the previous season. I didn't even finish it just because I've played enough already. Like it didn't take long. I beat the campaign and I was pretty much done with the game because the end game. But yeah, the previous season with the like the little robot pet that you got, I liked that. I thought it was cool. It was neat. It was a fun little thing. I wanted to get further into it and really see what it could do, but I didn't care, you know. And it really is. It comes down to the just the I'm leveling up, right? Like, and it's fun game, fun point and click game and stuff. But like, I'm I'm basically gonna pick one build that I like that a class has, and I'm gonna play that build. And it just gets really boring. Diablo 2 wasn't like that. You were always like even if you weren't like you weren't changing builds in Diablo 2 because you couldn't do that, but you were using multiple builds usually. I mean, I'm almost every time, almost every player, every person that played the game was like a hybrid of something. Of course, you have your characters that focused on a thing, but there was so many skills that you were doing so many things at once. Anyways, and 3 was even better. I like 3, especially the whole, you know, change your build on the fly. I mean, leveling up like 1 to 60, for example, in Diablo 3, if you wanted, the options and the opportunity is there because there's so many different builds, so many different ways to play, so many different styles per these skills and skill builds, that you could change your playstyle every 5 levels. Every time, completely different playstyle. You know, just a lot more to play with and play around with. So there's a lot of there's some cool. Oh, one sec. Yeesh. No, okay, sorry. There are some cool and fun builds in Diablo 4. I like it, and there is a few different ways to, you know, play and whatever. It's just in comparison, it's not as much as Diablo 2 or 3, and I find it more boring because of that, because I'm just kind of limited to my one favorite build. Because even if I mess around and play the different builds and stuff, but there's just, for each of these classes, there's only one that I really enjoy, that's fun to me, but it's not that the others aren't. It's just and I'll be more clear. In Diablo 3, each class I had at least five different favorite builds. At least 5 different favorite builds per class. I didn't really play much of the Barbarian or Crusader though, so I'll say that. But like, you know, there was at least 5 different builds that I really enjoy playing as, and I could pick them anytime I want to. Just boop boop. And you know what? I feel like playing this one now. I feel like I feel like playing a Hydra. I feel like playing Frozen Orb, which was kind of funny to see that back in part 3. I forget what. It's been a while since I played a mage, a sorcerer, in Diablo 3. What was the last character I was playing? I think the Barbarian again. I never took Barbarian and Crusader all the way to the end game because they're my least favorite classes. They're much more boring. I do like the Rogue in Diablo 4, kind of quicker. I like the melee. It's kind of cool. The Rogue has some cool like Ranger and Rogue like skill builds depending on which one you want to go out. They're neat. They're neat. I felt underpowered, but I mean that was the thing too. Like kind of makes me think about the way the loot's better again. Like it wasn't bad. Like when the loot's good like that, as you level, it makes it easier for you to test like builds when they're more powerful because of the gear you have. Like when you get like one of those super cool pieces of gear that boosts your abilities and whatever, like it just gives you a better feel for it. Like at lower levels, it makes it so you don't have to get into like the deep end game to actually try different builds out. And that's what made it difficult too. I mean, Diablo 3 had the same problem for the first year it was out, was that the gear sucked so bad. Game was still fun and I liked it, but yeah, the loot was so terrible. anyways, I've rambled too much about the same thing. And one of the thoughts that I had, just as a joke, kind of, and a sad thing, is like I was like, maybe 10 years from now the game will be what it should have launched as. You know, that's just where we're at now, right? That's where we're at now, apparently, in the current thing we live in. But sister was calling me for dinner. I did remind me, I had some thoughts, man. When I was thinking about this, I was like, because especially with the loot, how like I like that the stats are better now in Diablo 4. It reminded me of Marvel Heroes, and I still miss that game so much, man. I really wish somebody could bring that back somehow. That game was so good. It was so good. I don't know how that they just let that go. They were just like bloop, bloop, gone. It's so good. It was so good, but it was so good, man. I loved it. Anyways, yeah. So I'll link you to my main review of the game, which I think for the most part I still feel most of that. You know, I do like these improvements. Helltide feels pretty nice. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.